really great to see you all here. So I'm David Goff, and I've been with the NFF for 4 years and chairman since 2023. I live in a village called Collier Street in Kent, which you've most probably never heard of, but it's next to Yalding. Okay, you all have heard of Yalding, and you will have seen that we've had lots of various government people come down. Over the last 10 years or so, since I retired, I've been trying to bring people together, the parishes, flood groups in Kent, to help each other and find solutions and work with all the agencies, including Julie, who's somewhere here. We've set up the Midway Flood Partnership, so thank you for that, Julie. The government will talk a lot about how it's spending on flooding and flood risk. This is valued and appreciated. However, this morning's report from the PAC is a very timely reminder of the potential shortcomings of the current government approach. But recent storms, 8 so far this year, coupled with overstretched financial resources, an issue highlighted by the recent National Audit Report, means even more misery for flood communities up and down the country. This increased flood risk means disruption to many families, stretching emergency service and agencies, homes, powers and transport all at risk. Sadly, recent storms have seen a loss of life. This is a bit of a failure. We must look to the longer term solutions, and we must put communities at the heart of flood risk planning and management. Old ways of thinking will not support communities as we move into potentially an uncertain future. We must think bigger, bolder and better. We must give people hope, and we must ensure we can make space for the water we need to manage. Flooding impacts people in so many ways. It damages their physical and mental health. It erodes their sense of safety, leaving them traumatised and afraid. Many flood victims suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, along with mental health issues, which in turn puts an enormous pressure, potentially, on the NHS. It's a huge financial impact, and this has never been more relevant than we're seeing at the moment. Recent flood events have put further pressure on families already grappling with the cost of living crisis, and many floods are in deprived communities. There is a cost of reinstating a home, even for those lucky enough to be able to afford insurance. There are significant upfront costs, and there are incidental costs which may not be covered by insurance. Many personal possessions, including photos, are destroyed and lost forever. And there is no guarantee of government support for that. Putting a home back together after a flood event takes an enormous amount of time, drains resources. It's a huge burden both on individuals, families and the wider community. Added to this, the long-term impact of flooding on buildings and its impact on house prices and the financial pressures are all too obvious. All these factors lead to more stress, more worries, less security for those affected. And the impact of flooding does not stop when the floods recede and the blue light people disappear. The NFF is calling for a bigger, bolder and more substantial approach to flood risk management. The current regime is not fit for purpose and fails the people it should help. Flood defence granting aid schemes criteria is too focused on economy assessments of people's costs and benefits. Many rural or smaller urban communities, which there are fewer properties that flood, are now even eligible, and that was highlighted in the report that came out this morning. Rural and inner cities often are categorised as deprived, are victims of multiple floods with profound effect their health and well-being. Too often they are left without the support they deserve. Simply put, there are too many communities that never have and never will match the current criteria, leaving them little hope for the future. This, in our view, is a failure of the system, and we believe that it's not acceptable. No one should live in fear, and flooding a constant risk and always on their minds. People don't even go on holiday in the wet season because they're worried what's going to happen to their houses. There's one thing I would ask you to take away from tonight, is to do all you can in whatever organisation you are to help change the funding criteria for flood management programmes. We need a funding regime that is not wholly weighted to PFR, but that instead gives equal weight to catchment level and multi-interventional approaches, including capital projects. That is as simple and transparent and allows communities to apply directly for funding. That gives more weight to the repeated flooding and to smaller communities, both rural and urban. That does not see the value of pure economic terms, but understanding the human, social and carbon costs of flooding. Government needs a strategy that embraces a truly multifaceted and integral approach to the flood defence, a strategy that tackles the true impacts of flooding and the impact that it has on people. People's lives are impacted profoundly by flooding. It is an experience they carry with them for a long, long time. The current regime places a huge emphasis on people's personal resilience. This undoubtedly has a place, but this needs to be dovetailed into a bigger, bolder vision of flood mitigation, with much more joined up thinking and cooperation between all of us. Thank you very much for listening.